So speaking of consequences, game theory, we're going to wrap up, or at least for our meaty subjects, on your favorite topic, and that is tariffs.
Oh
So
yeah.
we have three articles, and really we want to look at this from the perspective of the CIO and how do you prepare for this, or should you be preparing, and what is it? And I'm just going to sort of team all up and let you go to town. The first is actually a LinkedIn post by a gentleman by the name of David Politis. He is the CEO in residence for a venture capitalist firm that I'm a big fan of here in New York City, called Workbench. And he basically put this out, and let me tell you, it was pretty stark. It's like, this is war, prepare now, don't wait. And it was like, hey, this is real, and you better be acting right now. And then there's another article from CBS talking about like the ramifications on the consumer tech side and how much an iPhone could cost and why it's not as simple to simply say, oh, we'll produce it in the US. And then finally, a CIO Dive article that was talking about how the tariffs are causing CIOs to really start looking at IT budgets circumspect and just really kind of scrutinizing what they're doing. So just sort of queued it all up for you. They're all sort of part of the same thing here. What do you think? If you're a CIO today, or if you're advising a CIO today, what would you be telling them to do with all of this?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to remember that. So this is the Trump administration is definitely one that works very flexibly. I'll just say it that way. Try to keep it polite. And but it means that any one policy, you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know how long it's going to stay consistent. But you have to take them seriously. So if he says 125% tariff on China, you have to have a business scenario where that is in place. And it might hopefully it's a day and then it goes away because I think that's very disruptive for business, frankly. But it could be a month, it could be a year, and you have to have an idea of what does your business do if you're going to have to deal with this for an extended amount of time. And in some cases, this is really difficult because we know that, for instance, working with China, we don't just work with China because they're cheap, but because they have more discrete manufacturing resources than anybody else on the planet. And they know how to build stuff in ways that we don't. We just don't have several million people who understand, die and discrete manufacturing in the way that China does. So we have to figure out what that means. Are we willing to suck up the tariff costs? Do we have what level of backup manufacturing can we do for our specific devices, and how does that affect our supply chain, and what does that mean in terms of what we can model from a digital perspective? Like these are all backup plans that we need to have in place, and I think that scenario building is probably the most important thing that we can do right now, with the understanding that things are going to change, and probably things that you've never had to consider before in your lifetime are going to change.
It is interesting. So the article, the LinkedIn post, it was targeted at tech companies, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
founders of startups. But I will say, I think if you're a CIO, much of this is going to ring true. And he said the exact same thing, making these plans and looking at these as contingencies, in terms of how you operate. And I think from a CIO's perspective, and I think the CIO Dive article does a pretty good job of addressing this as well. But it just speaks to the fact that, and this is the part that I guess frustrates me with the way the Trump administration is handling it, is that it speaks to the fact that what is not going to happen anytime soon is stability, which is what we all want. We want predictability, right? We want to know what's going to happen. And like even this pause, well, it's a 90-day pause and he still put 10% on. And so I think we're going to see across the board, everyone sort of going into these holding patterns. And so if you're a CIO, the question is, well, how do you manage against that? Now, the one thing I will say is that I do think it also, because I always believe this,
Mm-hmm.
is that these times of turmoil, in fact, I think this is why you're looking for a job right now. These times of turmoil create opportunity, they create
Mhm.
change. And so if you're a CIO, I think you need to be trying to stake out two different points here, two different points of ground is the word.
Mhm.
Um, on the one hand, you want to create as much flexibility and adaptability as you can. Don't commit to long-term contracts, probably less so with us. You want to give yourself as much flexibility as you can, but you also want to be making smart investments and taking advantage of, if all of your competition is standing still and holding, and you see an opportunity to leapfrog by making a smart investment, then it's a great chance to do that. And so